The Chahoua gecko, an absolutely incredible species of gecko, striking this just fantastic camouflage pattern while still being a very impressive size. It is no wonder why this animal is as popular and sought after as it really is. However, there are definitely some things I think you guys should know about before going on this incredible journey of owning this fantastic animal. That's exactly what we are going to be talking about today. What you need to know before buying a Chahoua gecko. Stick around, we're going to be talking a lot about these big green bean boys, and subscribe if you're new. Would love to have you around. Let's get into it. The Chahoua gecko splooged on my hand right after I stopped that part of the video, so yeah, we put them up. First things first, let's get into number one. What is the Chahoua gecko? Now, the Chahoua gecko, otherwise known as Rhetodaculus chahoua, is an arboreal gecko natively found in the southern part of New Caledonia. These amazing geckos are known for one thing and one thing only, and that is going to be the incredible mossy pattern, so much so that they've been nicknamed the mossy gecko. The amazing thing about the camouflage is actually the coloration can vary, going from your standard mossy color, you know, the greens to dark greens, light greens, things of that nature, or we can even take a look at my female, who's the exact opposite. You get almost this barky camouflage with these tones of tans, browns. It's just really incredible that these animals can camouflage from moss to even bark. It's absolutely amazing. While there are definitely pros within the beauty of these animals, there also come some cons, and we're gonna get into that right now with number two, the care of the Chahoua gecko. Big misconception when it comes to the Chahoua geckos is people think that you can just mimic their care from their more popular counterpart, the crested gecko, just because of the fact that they both hail from New Caledonia. And while in some cases that can be true, some of their care aspects are a little bit similar, there are definitely two big things that are going to be vastly different, and that's going to be the heating requirements and the tank size. Chahoua geckos are going to like it just a little bit warmer than your crested gecko. Of course, those temps being somewhere around the 70 to 75 degrees, you want to bump that up just a little bit more for the Chahuas. Now, when we talk about temperatures, we talk about two main things. That's going to be your basking temps and your ambient temps. For basking, you're going to want a spot that's going to get somewhere around that 80 to 82 degrees, somewhere around there, where the ambience of that tank is going to be in the high 70s to low 70s, of course having that temperature gradient, making sure the animal goes exactly where it wants. If it wants to be a little bit warmer, it'll go to that basking zone. If it wants to be a little bit colder, it'll go where it's a little bit cooler. And then of course the second big difference being the enclosure size. Now, Chahuas themselves are a bit bigger than a crested gecko. We're not talking about radically different such as Leachianis, but they do get a bit bigger. Chahoua geckos getting an average of 10 plus inches with an average weight of somewhere around 45 to 75 grams is going to be a little bit more different than your crested gecko, ranging around that 8-inch size, and of course the grams are usually maxing out at around 40 to 50 max. Well, unless you're Cookie. If you're Cookie, then you are just a monster for whatever reason she is.
Boy, that's a thick-ass ball!
Now, with that being said, you're going to want a bigger enclosure. You want to make sure your animal has enough space to feel comfortable. And with that being said, I would really recommend nothing less than an 18 by 18 by 24. Those seems to be the minimum size requirements, but however, that is just the minimum size. If you want to go bigger, that would be just fantastic. Something like the 18 by 18 by 36 Zoom-Ed skyscraper would be awesome, or if you're thinking about going really major, the Zen Habitat's 2 by 2 by 2 would just be an absolute mansion for that lucky Chahoua gecko. It's pretty much where the differences end. When it comes to the tank setup, they're both arboreal. You want to have ledges both vertically and horizontally. You want to have a tropical setup. Some live plants would be awesome. Then of course that humidity getting anywhere from that 60 to 80% is what's key for the thrivability of your Chahoua gecko. We've talked a little bit about the care aspect. Let's get into the next topic at hand, which is going to be something I kind of took me by surprise when I first started getting into Chahoua. It's going to be number three, the personality of the Chahoua gecko. Now, Chahoua geckos are not like your crested gecko when it comes to the personality. They're not this herpy-derpy little thing that's gonna jump on you, and at the worst, it's gonna jump off you and you gotta chase it around for a couple of minutes. No, Chahoua geckos can be kind of territorial. It does seem as you move up the New Caledonian ladder, going from cresteds to gargoyles, Chahuas to leechies, the temperament seems to get a little bit worse each time. Now, of course, the Leachianis gecko, it's kind of known that they can be a little bitey, a little cage-aggressive, things of that nature, but what I didn't really hear too much about is the fact that Chahoua geckos can actually be the same way. This is something I really did not know about. The first time I put my pair inside their enclosure and then went to go grab the little dude because I just got Chahoua geckos. I mean, why would you not want to hold one? It bit me. The male actually bit me and it drew blood. Now, it wasn't this major gash where I'm talking about like tokay gecko bite. However, you know, it was a formidable bite that did draw blood, and at the worst, it just took me by surprise. I was like, whoa! Chahoua geckos actually bite? As a veteran tokay owner, I wasn't really too worried about this. I mean, I've got geckos that bark and lunge at me whenever I enter the enclosure. Chahoua biting me is not that big of a deal. However, I do think it's something that you guys need to know about before attempting the purchase of the Chahoua gecko. You know, if you guys aren't wanting this animal that could inflict, you know, minor damage, is going to be a little bit more feisty than your average crested gecko, maybe actually stay away from the Chahoua, because that stuff does happen. It's something you need to work around, and if you're scared of a reptile biting you, maybe, you know, steer clear of that Chahoua. Now, I do believe this just stems from being cage aggressive. Once I get all my Chahoua geckos out, I mean, you saw my little guy over there. Other than that, well, incident, he was pretty calm. He just kind of walks around. They're not too flighty like your crested gecko. However, that cage aggressive thing is something you should look out for. And again, if that's something that it's just like a hard pass, where you don't want a reptile, it's just a little bit feisty, then yeah, maybe this isn't the one for you. Alright, we got into what the Chahoua gecko is, a little bit about the care, and now the personality, but let's move on to the next step, which is going to be number 4, the cost that it takes owning a Chahoua gecko. This is the biggest drawback for the Chewies, and I think it's a really big stem on why they aren't more popular and more readily kept in the hobby. Chahoua geckos are a very pricey animal. They're pretty much head-to-head with the Leachianas, which is a big bummer, because obviously for the most part of the general public when it comes to the hobby, do you want a gecko that's gonna get 60, 70 grams, or do you want the big boy? And if you're kind of paying similar costs, maybe the Leachianus is a couple hundred more. At the end of the day, what's a couple $100? You know, the Leachianus is gonna take the cake 9 times out of 10. Personally, for me, I like the Chahoua geckos. The mossy coloration and just the vividness of that color pattern, it's awesome. I love it. I love it a little bit more than the Leachianus. There's a couple other reasons why I chose the Chewies, but that was the main one. However, that's not the case with most people, unfortunately. What is going on with this? Just like, go, Jesus Christ. When it comes to the actual cost of the Chahoua gecko, you can expect to pay anywhere from $400 to $900 depending on the locale, that being mainland or Pine Island. Just a quick tip, if you are wanting to get just a pet-only gecko, I'd go for the mainland. They're cheaper, they seem to have a better temperament, or so they say. I'm not entirely sure, but mainland's gonna be the one for you. You're gonna save a little bit more money, and just from what people say, it's a little bit more of a friendlier gecko. Now, as a Chahoua breeder myself, I'm not dogging the price whatsoever. I understand the cost. These geckos do not give you that many eggs, somewhere around 2 to 6, maybe if you're lucky. The eggs are a little bit harder to incubate versus your average New Caledonian gecko. The females tend to go a little bit more into calcium crashing, just crashing altogether. It's just a little bit more difficult to use these Chahoua geckos, and of course they're going to be a lot of more limited number comparatively speaking to the other New Caledonian species. So again, not dogging the price for it, but it's just a big bummer that the cost is so up there with the Leachianus that it really kind of dogs down the popularity of them when it comes to the people that are keeping them as a pet-only species. Alrighty folks, before we wrap this up, let's get into the last topic at hand, which is going to be number 5, the experience I think you should have before attempting to own a Chahoua gecko. All in all, when it comes to the experience level for the Chahoua gecko, I don't think they're a very difficult species to keep. Now, breeding the animals is a totally different ballgame, but when it comes to just keeping the Chahoua geckos, I don't think it's very difficult. There are a little bit more things you need to tweak other than the beginner species I recommend of the crested gecko. However, it's not too much different where I would say like the crested gecko is a beginner, but the Chahoua, that's like advanced. I think maybe having just a base understanding of what reptile husbandry is, how to obtain basking temperatures and proper humidity levels, that's really kind of all you need as far as the knowledge behind it of owning Chahuas. As far as owning it as a first-time pet, I don't think I'd recommend it too much just because of that cage aggressiveness. Of course, if you're just owning one gecko, that being the Chewy gecko, and them being a little bit more cage aggressive, a little bit more nippy and bitey, that can really turn someone off from the hobby and wanting to get more reptiles later on down the road. So maybe get like a crested gecko or something along those lines, something just a little bit more friendlier with a better personality, and then kind of work your way up to Chihuahua. However, if you're dead set on the Chihuahua, I don't think you need to wait as long as you know the personality is a little bit more feisty than your other New Caledonian geckos. They make great pets. I think they're absolutely fantastic. Looking around that cage aggressiveness, I think their deposition is awesome once they're out of the cage. You guys saw, you know, he kind of just walks up me. He's not like super skittish. He's not trying to bite me like tokays when they're out. They're kind of, once they're out, they're good to go. They're a little bit more calm and their demeanor's a little bit better than what I find with crested geckos. They're a little bit more flighty and jumping, things of that nature. At the end of the day, I think they can make a handleable pet if you're willing to work with them a little bit more, or just an absolutely fantastic display enclosure. Making this thing into a complete bioactive planted vivarium, you're gonna have a hard time finding this thing because putting some moss in there and having it blend into the moss, that'd be absolutely awesome, man. I would be totally stoked to see that, and I'm sure you guys will too. Alright folks, now it's your turn. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Well, what did you guys think? After knowing all these things I've talked about, are you ready for the Chahoua Gecko? Or maybe some of these tips and tricks kind of turns you off from the animal. Maybe you're thinking you need a little bit more time for attempting to get this amazing species. If you guys are interested in getting a Chahoua Gecko and want to purchase them from me, I will have some babies this year. However, I always post them on Patreon first before I let them out into the public. If that's something you guys are interested in, make sure to check that link in the description down below. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to follow us over here at DBCB Exotics. We got a couple of other great videos for you if you want to learn more about the Chahoua geckos. That's gonna be it. Until next time, goodbye.